Welcome to Swatches channel. I'm Clint. This is my wife Diana, and we are both professional illustrators as well as the creators and instructors over at Swatches Academy. I was trying to open.
Now it opened.
Now it opens. Okay. I was trying to open this earlier, but it was bugging out on me. So what we're going to be doing in this episode is reviewing your submitted both individual art pieces as well as portfolios. And if viewers want to submit their work to be reviewed in a future episode, all you need to do is go to the Swatches Discord. The easiest way to find that is literally just go to swatchesdiscord.com, and we'll link you right over here to our server, and look for the video critique submission under your art. There's a little onboarding thing that you'll need to do. You probably just need to announce, say hello in the general chat, and then you should be able to see the other rooms. Okay, well, welcome everyone who is joining live. If you guys do have questions while you're doing the live stream, feel free to put those in there. We will try to address those as we're going. Otherwise, the art that we're going to review has already been set. We're just reviewing them in the order that they were submitted. If anybody wants, I know sometimes we have people that want to hey, if I submit stuff right now, can I get it reviewed? Not in this episode because we already have previous people. But like I said, if you want to go ahead and drop them in there, then we could probably get to that in a later episode. Okay, this is the third episode we're doing of reviews. If you want to see more of what we're doing, 2 other ones are already out on the channel. So today we're going to start by looking at the work from Lucas. Also, if we have any audio technical problems, please let us know in the live chat. We're keeping an eye on that just in case something comes up. Okay. Now, Lucas said that he is aiming to work as an environment concept artist or illustrator for games and film, but struggled to finding any work and wonders if he has any fundamental skills lacking. That's a very good thing to be aware of because that's usually what the case is if you're not finding work and you have a full portfolio. So we've got these pulled up on the other screen. Let me drag them over. Right. Now we glanced at these earlier through everyone's work and jotted down just a couple of notes on our other screen because we don't want to forget some of our points. So we're looking through this. What is the takeaway here when you're just glancing at the portfolio of kind of the top level as you're seeing it?
So just at a glance, there are a lot of really big, epic scenes that are kind of similar in nature. You have the tiny figure and some big epic thing that they're looking at or standing in front of. So we've got a bunch of those. They kind of look half like illustrations and half like concepts, not really clear. And then it's pretty much all like that except for these last 2 squares here, where one is an interior kind of cutaway. You can see clearly what is a concept for an environment. And then this, which also looks kind of like an illustration. I think you mentioned here they're keyframes. So those things are a little bit different from the others. But overall, that's what I'm seeing. You mentioned here that you are, I guess, looking to do environment concept or illustration, but those are kind of 2 different jobs, more or less, 2 different things, and they're usually 2 different portfolios.
Yes. That is a really important point. Both of these are completely valid career choices, but they are very different paths of what you need to learn. We certainly suggest picking one or the other. I say, based on what I'm seeing here, that you want to go for the environment design rather than try to go for the keyframe. Subject matter wise, the sort of art that you aim for there's varying levels of like what you can do at what point in your career. Generally speaking, keyframe art is a senior level subject. Those are given to artists who have at least 5, if not 10 years of industry experience, who really have a handle on composition, design, lighting, mood, posing. Like, you've got to know everything, and they generally are going to put that in the hands of somebody who's very experienced. The issue with this, and I think I have a slide about this. This is one of the slides from our career presentation, is this. Picking your challenger. Basically, you pick your opponent like it's a video game, right? Every time you pick a type of art, and this goes for everyone, we're putting this out there for everybody. Mm-hmm. Every time you choose a piece of art and you put it in your portfolio, you're basically throwing your hat in the ring and challenging some other artist for a certain work. So these two are both challenging each other. These are challenging each other. These are challenging each other. So if you want to do, and apologize, I don't know who made these
this
pieces.
is because they're trying to do the same job.
Yeah.
Right? So you may see this and say, oh, well, those people aren't in the same league.
Yeah.
But they are competing for the same client, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you do a big epic scene, you're competing for clients that need big epic scenes. And these other artists are also competing for those clients.
Yeah. That is why it is better to do a simpler subject matter at a higher quality than a larger subject matter at a lower quality. Lower quality on anything, be it individual prop to a large scene, has little to no value industry-wise. But even if it's something simple at a high quality, that is valuable. You can find work in that. So, like, this is one of my old pieces. And that was fine for a study back then. But if I still had that in my portfolio, like, that's who it's going up against. White background, single character, a few props. Mm-hmm. So we want to keep this in mind because a lot of students, a lot of them, in fact, we're going to see some more as we're looking at more stuff today, are picking subjects where they are immediately competing against senior level illustrators and concept artists on that. That isn't to say that you shouldn't eventually aim for such a thing. That's fine. Mm-hmm. If you want to aim for doing keyframes, Lucas, I don't think there's any issue, but I would put that down the road. Now, the things that you have learned various things of composition. Let's pull this one up in particular. I think you started getting at the point where you were getting some good or better results. I still don't think that means build a portfolio for keyframes. Now, this is a lot of great things. Looks like you're starting to learn some 3D. You're starting to learn a bit more about value, lighting setups. That's certainly good. This sort of thing is nice. This starts being more valuable because you're solving problems. You're figuring out design solutions for design issues. Now, it looks to me like you listen to Feng Zhu.
It looks, we could be wrong, but we were looking at the portfolio and we thought, it looks like he listened to the latest Design Cinema episodes.
Yeah. Because
you made like a very different turn. You were doing kind of that thing he talks about with the small little figure and the big object there in the background. Now you're doing something more specific. You're actually doing things at a human scale that can be interacted with.
Yes. So I do want to say, Lucas, whatever inspiration, intuition, or video you listen to, whatever drove you to create this project, listen to that. That was 100% what you should do.
That's very cool.
Yes. Floor plans, breakdown, line art. This is showing real value where you're you're determining all of the specifics. You're making it, like you said, human scale.
Like you can go in here into these rooms, and you could even make a piece just for each room if you wanted to get closer and show like the set dressing and some more narrative elements. But just from here, like there's so many things that are useful in a game or movie or a show where you could see, okay, the characters go in here, or your character, when you're playing a game, can go in here and explore these areas. It's something that you really couldn't get from those other pieces. Right?
Well, the other ones are just generic. It is generic guy on a horse looking at generic city in a generic desert. There is a scene, but it's not really solving anything. It's not getting any specifics. You couldn't design a model based off of this. You couldn't really do much with this other than have the general concept of what is occurring here. We would recommend do a full portfolio of these.
Yeah.
This sort of thing right here.
Maybe something that's connected to this, like
Sure.
Maybe there's a dock, near this lighthouse. Maybe there is a ship that you could design the interior of the ship, what's in there. We really recommend using a brief too, like creating a project and creating a couple of different environments for that project. They don't have to be enormous in scale. It can be like the fishing hut, the dock, the ship, that corresponds to this lighthouse, or the captain's quarters on the ship, things like that have a human scale and a narrative element, and that are solving problems that a client would have.
Yeah. On this itself, I don't really want to go into critiquing little design elements in your design, because I think this is still fairly fresh direction for you. Just continue going with it. The small thing I would just say, like on this, is that we don't really need this building shadowed. The whole point of this image is to show us the design, and by putting the light on the other side of the building, we're just getting more information lost in the shadow, this kind of dim, low contrast. So I would recommend at least just boosting that up a little bit. You can probably just do that in Photoshop and just boost the value up a little bit. Like this shows up a lot better. I can see a lot more detail. I can see the colors more vividly. So that would be a better approach to it. Let's see, any more notes on this one? No, Lucas, really, that's what I'd say. Stick with that. If you have any interest in it, I think you ought to go with that and consider just branching out. Also, the other thing I like about this, you grounded it. This is something that we're seeing a lot with student work, is that they're going much too fantastical. They're not grounded. A lot of times, a lot of the work is going to be much more grounded than it is fantastical. So you did a version of a lighthouse, weather station. Cool. Again, like do this, the nearby ship. Do the vehicle design, if it's a unique vehicle they use to get here, the nearby warehouse, whatever it is. Or just show me other stations, weather stations in other parts of the world. Just find some sort of series that you can do, or subject that you want to follow. Okay, let's go on and take a look at the next one.
Next one is Andre.
So Andre said, thank you for all you're doing. Well, thank you for submitting, Andre. Currently building an illustration focus portfolio. Current plan is to create 10 pieces before I start looking for work. If it's possible, I'd appreciate looking at the current work. Okay, first up, Andre, your comment and how you're approaching this shows a good amount of maturity. Of just saying, hey, I'm going to make this many pieces. I'm trying to get feedback. This is specifically what I'm aiming for. That's good to see. So let's take a look at the work over here. All right. So things that stood out to us about your work. One of the first things that I see that I'm really liking is overall the rendering is nice and clean. That doesn't mean everything has a hard edge. It doesn't mean everything is uber detailed. It isn't unduly brushy. There isn't random patterns everywhere.
It's not muddy at all.
It doesn't feel like you're trying to hide things in the image with stylistic little choices, right? So on that is really nice. Other things that caught your eye that you liked?
Yeah, like I mentioned just in passing, it's not muddy. You really commit to your colors, which is really nice. You have really nice faces on all your people, which is really, really important. And a lot of people struggle with that. And all your faces look really good. So that's one of the hardest things to overcome. And you're already doing that really well.
Okay, so as a portfolio, if I were in a hiring position, these two I would recommend dropping out. This just seems quite random. I don't get it. Maybe that's connected to some property I'm unaware of. It's just a bit too random. I'd take it out. This one, hey, I'm a fan of BioShock Infinite. I played it, really enjoyed it. That's a great game. But I'd suggest removing this. It has some issues with it. One is it doesn't quite look like she's sitting on that. It is kind of an odd standing position. The lighting isn't quite working because we're indicating like a very clear shadow here. But the lighting's like coming from the front, but it's shadowed down there. And these are like lit from the front. Anyway, it's got like some composition lighting things going on. So chalk it up to good practice, but for the strength of the portfolio, I'd consider dropping it. These, I think, are going much more the right direction. So going forwards from this, the issues that I'm seeing, the places that we see where to get more out of your images, one is, I'm going to say, the design, particularly in the costumes.
They're just a little too basic right now.
Yeah.
So I think you could really amp them up. It doesn't matter, or it doesn't mean complicating them just for the sake of complicating them, but actually make them thoughtful and cool and interesting. Right now, they're like the most simple version of the costume that you could have.
Yeah. What we're looking for usually is a few more layers. Can there be a dress, but then she has something else on top of it?
Does she have a pouch or something? A quiver with some arrows and, behind her? A little something extra, some design on the bracers.
Then it's...
Shoes would be good too.
Yeah. I was just thinking to say like shoes, some
Boots.
sort of pants. Like if this is an elven archer, ranger sort of character, she's probably going to have pants. She's probably going to have boots. She's going to have some sort of pouches and stuff. Even if it's a princess, you're probably going to have some sort of golden belt on.
I would even take a high heel boot,
Yeah.
That would be fine.
As far as this particular piece, the shoulder is throwing me off. It does look like the shoulder is cocked forwards and somehow the arm is going back from it. So I would definitely look at the reference. You might have been able to get a doll, like a 3D doll, to pose like that, but that's not quite right. So I would have to address that. A few other things.
Just step up for a moment.
Sure. A few other things, and we're just pointing out some small stuff because what we're talking about here is a little less of these are mistakes and more about this is how you get more out of the image. Is the costume design can add more. Another element like with this is that it has the look of someone doing like a martial arts jump kick. But she's not jumping this way because her hair and her dress is going that way, which means she's jumping backwards. That means that she's fleeing from something. So she's jumping away from something and shooting, but she also doesn't look concerned like she's about to get hurt. So there's a bit of a continuity thing here where we're not sure if she's scared or not scared or which direction she's jumping. Over on this one, this is quite interesting because I actually like the color scheme you're working with here. Like I said, a good clean rendering, but this isn't the optimal camera position. If we were to get this scene and drop the camera down 2 feet, it would be a better position. So that, I almost want to...
I'm not sure if you did any composition sketches before that piece, but if you didn't, if you're picking a really like exaggerated angle for the camera, like really high up or really low down, besides that one, also try one that's just at a normal height.
Yeah.
Just to compare, because it might have been stronger for you.
I am not going to do much on this, but it's just a little hard to describe sometimes. So like this, consider, and this goes for a lot of people with a lot of scenes, that if you have somebody right here by the camera, and I'm on a new keyboard, that's not the right key. Okay. That's my piece. I do 3D block in.
Oh,
okay. Well, 3D block in is keeping things pretty consistent, but spend a little more time looking for camera placement. Like, consider having this guy actually higher than the camera. So we're putting like this guy's head like here. We're just keeping it real close to camera, and we can have like his shoulder like there. And then we have the table sort of like here, and it's splitting in half. And now we can actually see the pieces flying because they're up over the table. And you can have that guy's mug, you know, it's closer to camera. We're getting closer to the action. Right now, we almost have like a third-person view of the scene, which doesn't really get us the energy. And then we can have that guy standing here, right? And he's taking up kind of visually all of this area. And that axe is coming a lot closer to us. And I'm just doing it very roughly here. And then with the perspective, our eye line has moved down, right? So our eye line is maybe around here now. And we can actually use some of the perspective lines of maybe the wall or the ceiling to draw us towards this guy. We can angle the building behind him to get more attention there. Right. And this would just get us in the action. We're basically feeling it from right over this guy's shoulder, and we can get more energy out of it. Aside from that, like, it's rendered well. Okay. Now down here, this one caught me as having some particularly nice tones in the skin.
That's a nice looking hand.
Yeah, that's good. With this, that is starting to fall a bit on the design. So this is something we're seeing across the work, is that spend more time in the designing phase. Like this here, overall value scheme is good. The color scheme's working fine.
Nice painting skills.
But again, the costume is like one piece of fabric in one color, light amount of trim. And that's kind of what we're getting on all of this, is like one piece of fabric, no textures, no layers.
It almost looks more like a Halloween costume than real clothes. You know, like the Halloween costumes you would get out of the bag to wear one time and then throw away. You need to spend a little bit more time on that, because that would, like, this piece could be elevated 30-40% if you gave this a nice costume.
Yep. So study some more character design and have lots of references. Do some studies off of excellent character designers. Like, if you want to look for some inspiration.
Yeah, just make some notes. Like, if you're looking at illustrations, even. Just look at some of your favorite pieces, you know, some really beautiful pieces, and just make notes about the costumes. What pieces are they wearing? What kind of costumes? How many materials are in one costume? 2, 3, 4 maybe? You know, what layers do they have on? So things like that. What accessories? Just make some notes. And then when you're doing your next one, try to bring some of that in.
Because what we talk about in the classes is that when you're designing something, and it goes for characters as well, you want to have large, medium, and small elements in it. So the large is like this full dress. Okay, what is the medium? The medium could be a vest that she has over it. It could be a scarf. It could be...
Side panels.
Yeah, something like that. The small would be like the necklace, the bracelet, something like that. Or it could be little elements, flourishes on the costume itself.
It could be some sort of tiara or headband or hairpiece.
Yeah. So right now what we have basically is large and small. We have some filigree little stuff and we have one large piece of fabric. We're lacking those mediums that really give it a nice balance across. Yeah, continue with a subject matter like this. This is good. Consider working from a brief.
Yep, you can get them off of our Discord. We're also, like I mentioned before, people have asked, we're going to release the portfolio project kits soon-ish. I don't exactly know when. By all means, like, don't wait for us to release them. You can get started on, there's a lot of briefs in the Discord that are already done. But I think one thing that would really help you now going forward is practicing, like, you can paint. It's practicing the communication, the narrative. So whatever the point of the image is, it's practicing how to communicate that clearly.
Yeah.
So that we know what's going on right away at first read. Developing your costumes a little bit more. Those are the main things you need to focus on. I would really suggest, I don't know if you want to invest to this degree or not, but a mentorship would probably be really good for you. It doesn't have to be with us. We have mentorships available, but it doesn't have to be with us. It can be with any other illustrator that you like. But I feel like you're at that stage now where it would really help you just to have someone to give you some guidance, some information on how to kind of check these things for yourself. And someone could show you that, and then you could just learn to do it on your own, right? So I don't think you need a full class. I think a mentorship would probably be good enough.
In case anybody's wondering about mentorships, the best time to take those is when you're not making foundational errors. If you've already learned the fundamentals, then and you're starting to put together scenes, mentorship is great for how to get more out of the scenes, but they're not that useful for learning how to do basic stuff and learning the fundamentals, because that's more accessible for...
It's better to have a curriculum for that.
Yeah. So, but you're at that place where you can get more out of that. So. Okay, Andre, hopefully that is helpful to you. We've enjoyed looking at your work. Very nice, clean work. It's good to look at. Okay, up next is Noah. Now, we are familiar with Noah.
Noah's here in the chat. Hi, Noah.
Yeah.
Noah was my student. I don't know how long
yes,
it's
we
been.
do remember you.
Obviously. I think it was a year ago, maybe. I don't know exactly how long.
Here's how my character design portfolio is looking. What about future projects do you think I could add to bolster the portfolio? Should you keep to one genre? Should I diversify? Okay. Well, let's take a look at your stuff. I'll pull out to the top view here. It is good to see that you are continuing your work.
Yes.
You certainly showed us a good set of skills. This is the one that Noah made in the character design class based on Apex Legend. Going for a...
wrestler.
Yeah,
I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, that was a fun character. You really pulled out some good rendering and good mashup of your inspirations on there. So going forward, we're looking at the whole thing. You're making a good call to stick with the characters over blank background. I think that's the right thing for you to be doing right now, not necessarily trying to immediately jump to scenes, because those are just multiple times more difficult. The thing that catches me as giving the work a more amateurish look is that it is very black heavy and kind of muted. So if we look at
He
this,
says he's got a portfolio tab on his ArtStation. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. Oh, so this is the portfolio. Okay, so this is what he's considering his portfolio.
okay. So we're looking here. A couple of notes. One, it doesn't look like you are trying to hide from rendering. That's good to see. Some people just try to get fuzzy. They try to get artsy and brush strokes and stuff and like obscure things basically. You don't, so that's nice to see. I do question, like, if you're going to put this much time into a character, whether this would be the most effective subject to do. Because essentially, and this goes for everybody, the more niche you get with a character, essentially the less clients it becomes applicable to. You want your artwork to look useful to a fairly wide range of clients. That's why you have it in the portfolio. So you want to do things that are somewhat generic subject-wise, but not painted in a generic way. You want to have good rendering on something that can apply to a fairly wide range of people.
It's not to be generic. You want it to have general appeal.
Yes.
So that doesn't mean the thing has to be generic, but it just means it's more useful if it appeals to more clients, to a bigger audience.
Mm-hmm. So here, an underwater shark human bard.
If you didn't have the description of the text, so if we couldn't see that and I just looked at the art, this is what visual communication means. What are we just communicating with the picture without any explanation? I would say, man, that guy looks pretty menacing. Like, that guy looks like some kind of soldier, enforcer. I don't know why he's dressed in this kind of silly manner, but he looks pretty threatening. And that's, I would think, is he dressed, did he eat the bard and he put his clothes on? Is he undercover pretending to be a bard? Yeah,
it gives me the impression of Red Riding Hood, where the wolf is pretending to be grandmother, right? But I also don't feel like that's actually what you were going for.
I'm not sure. See, that's the problem, Noah, is that you're telling us one thing in the description, but the imagery is communicating something else, right? So that's one thing to be aware of, which is, what am I actually saying with this image? Am I trying to do a bard? Then just let's make him look more like a bard that does this for a living. This guy looks really menacing and dangerous and aggressive.
Is there another aquatic creature that you could do that would have a more, in this case, light-hearted, kind of jovial appearance that would go along with that bard archetype? Okay, over here. Again, if I didn't see this text, I would not read this as an ice warrior. I would read it as some kind of fighter or warrior. Sure, that's obvious. But ice doesn't really come across. So we have to find, like, what are the key visual markers for that element that we can put in to sell it. So right now, it's unclear that these are ice. Maybe they're just crystals. Maybe they're a spiky metal. It's a little unclear. If you wanted to convey more of that ice Arctic warrior vibe,
more
what would
frosty.
that be?
Yeah. So what could we do to make this look cold, right? some furs, maybe a hood, something like that, a big furry cape or cloak, fur trim. White hair would be nice. Okay, you've given her dark skin, but can't we have the hair be white? Can we have, some maybe snow on her?
Exactly. I was thinking about that dusting of snow. Consider like the white hair, maybe her type of people who live in this climate. They'll all have like ice blue eyes, maybe blue lipstick, that sort of thing. Translucent, if you could get more of that effect going on. So that's kind of where you're at, where you've got the base of the idea there, but we're not quite developing it visually enough to tell as much about the character as you're trying to.
This happens a lot where people get really swept up in just trying to figure out shapes and design, and then lose sight of, what am I actually trying to say here? Where does this character live? What am I trying to communicate? I have to put those visual markers in, right? Let's go to the next piece here. So this is from class. And then...
Okay.
This one has a nicer, I think, render. You're not getting your values as contrasty as the others.
Again, we're going to recommend that you not get so contrasted with your values. You're jumping to black with a lot of the shadows, and everything just has this hard edge to it.
I can't remember. Noah, did we go over halfway to black in class? You'll have to let me know if we covered that. I can't remember. But if we didn't, go Google halfway to black, okay, and you'll see an image from Scott Robertson or other people that have made demos of it. And each section of a character that has a base color, the value has to correspond to that base color. So the shadow value, and the light value. Right now, what's happening is a lot of these areas are all running into the same shadow value and into the same light value. So some of these colors are just getting really bleached out in the light and really, really dark in the dark. And that's, on a technical level, that's what some of your pieces are suffering from. That's why they look so contrasty, because the value range is so wide across every piece of the character.
Now, you kind of do that here where you're keeping a certain value range for the tail, and you're limiting the darkness so it doesn't compete against this. That's 100% what you need to do, but do it everywhere. Every area should have a defined value. Like, overall, this chest color is lighter than this leather piece here. So the dark of this should never be as dark as the dark of this. They should always be equivalent. Like, if this is dropping from the lit side to the shadow side and it goes down 4 values, then this should also go down 4 values. And they're always going to be equivalent. All right, right now we're seeing the one dropping all the way down. So he's like dropping 6 values to equal this guy, and this one's dropping 4. So it gives everything a different amount of light intensity on it, and it kind of breaks up the values.
That's what people are talking about when they mention like value relationships and color relationships. It's like everything next to everything else has to go down into its proper zone, right, at the same speed. Okay.
I do want to call this out. Like this line work with
really
these
nice.
Subtle gradient tones. This is good, man.
I think this whole sheet, if you did it like that, Noah, it would be like 50% stronger.
Yeah. Because this is getting to the point where it's like the render is, in a way, starting to compromise the design. Because my eye keeps getting caught on all of these like super high contrast spots. Where this, I'm just free. My eye is just more free to kind of look around and enjoy the design for design's sake. I would consider just doing this, and honestly, that's going to be so much faster to do, and let's legitimately.
Because you have good drawing skills.
Oh, yeah,
there's nothing like there's no proportion issues in the drawing. We collected some images here from Brian Mathias. Just to, I don't know if I showed him to you in class, but when he goes dark in those darks in the occlusion areas, it's very controlled. It doesn't spill into all the other areas, so nothing else will get as dark.
Basically, Brian is a great example for anyone thinking about doing character concept art that doesn't do full painted renders. All right, he still has quite a line base with flat approach. As you can see, he's this perfectly suitable even for a high level project. This guy's worked on Avengers stuff. He's worked on Star Wars stuff.
I just want to point out something about this piece too. I was reading in Loomis the other day, is you'll notice something Brian does too that Loomis talks about, which is he only puts the folds that need to be there to show the form.
Yeah.
He doesn't put too many little shapes that are contradicting the form to confuse the eye. He's all about those big forms.
So on this, one of the ways that you could approach it, and I think it could work well for you, Noah, because your line work is quite good, is that don't try to compete the render with illustrators. It's not an illustration. It's a concept. So instead, what you do is you allow everything to just be its base color. So like this is just the base gray tones, brown tones, gray tones, right? And then the shadow, you basically just spot the black. And those they're not form shadows. That's not what he's putting in. He's putting in cast shadows and occlusion shadows. Anything that would be a cast shadow or an occlusion shadow basically just becomes black.
Go for a moment to the other characters here and show a better example of that. Just see those black spots? That's what Clint is talking about. The cast shadows and the occlusion shadows. Everything else pretty much stays within its range. So you can see like this piece of armor here, right? Okay, there's a little suggestion of lighting on it, one little value notch up. Everything else, it's like just a teeny bit of value variation in the brush.
He builds in a small amount of tonal variation. He just has some color jitter on his brush. He paints it in just so it doesn't feel like a coloring book, one solid color, right? So he does that, and that's enough. The other thing he does is a higher render on the face. And that's what sets the whole thing off and gives it a little more realism. So you can do that as well. You could do a more realistic render on the face, and then everything else is kept more in this kind of
This is just a
tone.
suggestion. I also think your line work is so good that you don't even need to render.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't even need to do that. You can just stick to lines and flats, and I think the pieces there wouldn't be anything taken away, anything lost.
Okay, was there anything else I wanted to mention on here?
I think we mentioned doing a brief. Again, there's like a lot of personal stuff here. I think if you worked from a brief similar to that which your clients would ask you, I don't know who your target clients are really from this. I'm not sure. That's the thing. It's like I'm not even sure. You're not making it clear. But if it's Pathfinder, if it's to do illustration, if it's to do concept art, get some briefs off of the Discord, or if there's nothing similar to what you want, hey, send me a message and maybe we've got something kicking around. But doing briefs similar to what your target clients use and sticking to that brief and seeing, hey, can I communicate what is needed from this brief? That's the next step. Doing personal work is, you can always change the concept, right? But on a client piece, you can't.
All right, I'm going to be nitpicky and mention something else here. I don't think this is necessarily making or breaking your piece, but I feel like there's a better way to do it. There is a juxtaposition of style and rendering that's kind of at odds, where some elements, I'm going to see if this is big right now. Some elements are clearly photo bashed that have a high level of visual fidelity, detail, realism, and it's contrasting against areas that are obviously hand painted like this, that are flat colors, brush strokes. And they don't really play well with each other. what it comes across as is more like just being indecisive about what you're aiming for. It's not really photo bashed and real, but it's not really hand painted either. What we're getting is kind of the best of neither. And I think that you could either have simpler, bolder, hand painted everything, or you could have more realistic photo bashed everything. But now we have this kind of an odd mixture of the two, which at a small size doesn't really matter too much. But when you get up closer, it just has an, I don't know, I think there's a more effective way of doing it.
Even just running a filter over the photo bits to remove some of the resolution might help.
Yeah. Okay. Noah, hopefully that helps.
You have good skills, Noah. I think you're just not utilizing them to the most effective way. So think about what we said, some of those things. Go back over this, and you can always send us a message. We're always available to our students, our former students.
Sure.
If you feel really lost about something.
Okay. Next up is Sebastian. Now, Sebastian, just going to look at your comment here. So working on a portfolio piece. This is an original character with this illustration. It's kind of aiming at splash arty kind of quality. There's still a lot of things to do, at least a couple of days of work, such as the background and the hair and the bow and the arrow thingy. Okay, I guess you're still deciding if that's an arrow or not. But I figured out I might ask for feedback. Okay. So I'm
Sebastian.
just
Hi, Sebastian.
not that great in art directing myself.
Oh, well, most people aren't.
I'll tell you what. A lot of artists, especially students, aren't that great at directing themselves. And when we suggest for you guys to work from briefs, that's the reason why. And we're not saying that because like we're some kind of amazing, we don't have that problem. Hey, I 100% had that issue when I was building a portfolio, back when. I picked all kinds of odd things that were not the most effective things to be doing images of.
Me too.
The fact is, image selection or subject selection is a significant factor in a portfolio, just like the skills is a factor. And that is something that you get better at with experience. After you've done dozens of images for clients and you've worked with a variety of clients, or you've been in a position where you are reviewing work to hire somebody for a job, then you get to know what good images, useful images are versus less useful, useful. And that's where we say, hey, if you don't have a lot of industry experience, try to work from a brief set by a pro or another version of an existing piece, because it's probably going to have better industry
relevance.
Yeah. So looking at your piece here, you put something on Dropbox.
I did. I did a little paint over for you, Sebastian.
Okay.
I liked your idea. And there's also sometimes things that can't be explained so well without showing it visually.
Okay.
You didn't grab
closed
it?
Dropbox. So yeah, give me just a moment.
Sorry,
she
guys.
put together a file and I forgot to go grab that before stream. It'll take just a moment. If somebody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will go over it for just a moment.
In the art files.
Yeah, I gotta go here. We've got folders and folders and folders of stuff.
There's more art than anyone needs in this Dropbox. We have way too many things in here.
Portfolio reviews, I think.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. I think I grabbed your most updated one, Sebastian. I don't know. I grabbed it earlier today, so whatever was up there today.
Oh, give me the window.
Oh, no, you didn't get it? Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's a PSD, so gotta open it in Photoshop.
Okay, so let's talk about what you saw and then what you did with it.
Yeah, can you switch that window over there so I can see it back again? Okay. All right, so actually, we really liked your character design that you had. Like earlier in that thread, you posted the design for this character, the costume. And then it looked like most of it was just kind of altered for some reason. So you had some cool stuff going on, and then it didn't make it into this image for some reason. So we can show everybody here what we're talking about. Yeah, this piece here. So there were some cool things happening here. It had like sort of an Asian vibe to it almost. But then something happened between this and the other piece.
Yeah.
And it started to take on all these other shapes and other things, and it changed quite a bit. So I don't know what the reason for those changes was, but I wanted to say that I liked the other version better. Like the other design was, it had a specific kind of aesthetic and point of view. This one is just kind of turning into more of a generic fantasy costume. So Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my notes here.
Yeah.
So we looked at kind of your progress that you made over the last few years. You are definitely improving a lot. We got your art station up here. So we just kind of wanted to see where you were coming from, what you were working with. I know you have a day job, so or I believe you do. So you're spending time, like whatever time you have available on this, and you're making big improvements. So that's good. I do think that we talked about this earlier. We feel like splash art is a really big jump. You're basically going from, you said, never working professionally to now spending 40, 50 hours trying to do a splash art image. I don't know if that's the best use of your time right now for where you are with your skills.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to get work, I don't know if this is the best strategy, because like Clint mentioned earlier to, I don't know who it was, Lucas or somebody else, that you're putting yourself up against splash artists who are seniors. Like those images mostly get done by seniors with a lot of experience. So right away, like if your objective is to get work sooner, trying to become a splash artist, you're not going to get any work until you're competitive, right, at that level. So I don't know if this is the best strategy.
Like what we're just trying to do is make sure you guys understand, in this industry, splash art is one of the highest levels of difficulty that you can aim for. It's not a challenge to students to do that. It's like saying, I've just started training and, in doing sports, I'm aiming for the Olympics. I want to do the Olympics next time. Like, okay, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you realize you're going up against people who have been doing training for 20 years or whatever, and they've got super coaches and, they're pros at this.
What we're saying is that where you are right now with your skills, having a goal that's just closer to you is like a better strategy, I think. Okay, so when we talked about the other piece with just a character design, if we had like kind of what Noah's doing, right? If we had that character on a white background or even on a gray background, like this is fine, and you just focused all your time on polishing this up, making sure the anatomy is correct, making sure the pose is referenced and makes sense, and all those little edges are nice, and you had a portfolio of that, that is closer to you, like it's more within your range where you are right now, and you might be able to get work a lot faster
Yes.
with a portfolio like that than trying to do these big scenes. Okay, so we've mentioned that, said that. Now maybe we'll look at the piece in particular and just say, okay, I don't recommend spending another 20 hours on this. I think it's not going to get that much better than what it is right now. You're going to fix some details and, tighten some things up, but overall, it's not going to vastly change the image.
It's not going to make the image
competitive.
Yeah, by having, like, if the tree was more detailed, it's not going to somehow then just set this image over the plateau.
So that's fine. This is a good practice. I would consider it a good practice. If you want to finish it, put more time in, that's fine. But I would consider switching tactics and going back to character. Your character design had a lot of cool stuff. I mean, there was, it had merit.
Yeah.
There was no need to get more complex than that. Okay, so here on this piece, if you wanted to keep working on this piece, what is a couple of things that you could do with your current skill level to make this piece stronger?
Oh, I thought you were going to follow that with telling me.
No, I could, but I mean, if you want to tell, then.
So right now, one of the problems that I feel like you're running into is particularly with the pose. It looks like you're trying to do these sort of hyper foreshortening, low camera angle, splash art sort of thing. But what we're getting is a lot of curvature to the body. And we have this extreme up angle looking at the face, but the face isn't really matching the same perspective angle. I just overall doesn't feel like the pose is adequately referenced with the anatomy underneath it. And some of the shapes, the way that they've been added over the body form is compromising the feel of the volume of the character. So what I mean by that is, okay, and we'll talk about the design in a moment, but we're just kind of talking about how this is sketched in. This basically looks straight. There's a small amount of curve to it, but that's, if I put a contour line on the surface of that object, that is basically straight. What gives me the feeling that her chest is flattening out at the same time that her body is curving forwards. So if her chest was really doing this, I would expect that line to be doing this at least in order to get the right amount of curvature over her chest and allowing her body to bend like that. We have the other issue here. I'm just pointing out a few things. That we have basically the spherical form of the shoulder over here, and that's way too big. And this, again, is treating it almost like a flat plane. You've got like a flat plane. This may be accurate if viewed from eye level, but it's not accurate from the fact that we're looking up underneath it.
Where the camera it's gonna look quite different.
Basically, it has to be, if you put a contour line across that sphere, and then put room around it, like a ring around it, you're going to get this. That is more how that sleeve would have to fall around there to get the volume of the arm, because it's basically cylindrical / spherical in the top. Okay, those sort of things are popping up in various places around the character, and that's throwing off the sense of the anatomy and the volume of what we're looking at. Those things are not going to be improved with details. That really is a drawing issue of
it's a structural
issue.
That would have had to been solved at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Another thing just to be aware of is we're getting two things, which is fabric that is not very believable, what's going on here, does not look realistic. We're getting kind of a logic problem too. If the arrow is put on this bow, first of all, the bow's made of metal. Don't know how it's going to bend. So there's that. But okay, you could say it bends by magic. Okay, fine. But if we put the arrow here and we pull it back with this arm, well, this arm should have the bracer, right? On it. You see a little bit of it, but there shouldn't be a long sleeve there where the arrow is going to be touching, right? So the design doesn't make a lot of sense. You have a normal sleeve here, you just have a normal sleeve on this side as well, right? So things like that need to be thought out a little bit more clearly. Now, when we were talking about what can you do to make this piece better right now with the skills that you have, is number one, referencing. I just went to Daz and I got this doll and I just tried to put the doll more or less in the position kind of like what you have your character, but not as much distortion, right? We don't need to be so low looking up at the character. But if we put the doll here and then overpaint it, and you can see that's literally all I did was just follow the doll and put your character and map it to the doll. And does it look like splash art? No, it doesn't need to look like splash art right now. It just needs to look correct. And it looks correct now.
Yeah, the issue and the reason we have we have hesitancy recommending people try to do splash art is that splash art isn't reality. Splash art is bending the rules of reality to make it even more intense. It's not normal perspective, it's warped perspective. It's not normal design, it's heightened design, right? The only way that you do that without breaking the image is that you know normal reality inside and out. Where you only by knowing the thing super well can you bend the rules on it without compromising it, right? And that's what we're starting to get is you're starting to try to bend some of the rules on this stuff, but you don't quite know them to a level where you're not doing it without compromising it. And that's where we say, hey, just back it up to just normal reality. Don't worry about the foreshortening.
Don't pull the camera so extreme, right?
Yeah.
Like just pull it out a little bit more so we get a more realistic proportion to everything. And then just focus on making that look good. If you can make that look good, and you can do that several times, then you can try to see, oh, can I bend it a little bit more? Can I make it a little bit more fantastical?
Now, I'm going to make a comment here. I know that we've been kind of hammering on you, and we don't say this in order to, like, I don't know, just be mean. That's not what we're here. We're always trying to be constructive with this. So I'm going to make a comment here, and this, because it is good for the wider audience, which is be careful of looking at too much other art as your inspiration and your reference. I feel like we're running into that, where the design is starting to become too fantastical. And what I mean by that is you're just making it up. This isn't a real piece of clothing that exists. Nobody wears a metal, like 2.5 inch thick golden metal, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a skirt, wrap that goes around. Like, how does it stay up? Right? So we've got these sort of logic issues of, this thing has got to weigh 20 pounds. It's like 20 pounds of metal. How is it staying on her? Now, we can get away with some of that in fantasy art, but there does hit a point where, like, your brain just kind of goes, I've got an issue with this. The same thing with this, right? We're just talking a little bit about design and grounding your designs. This is solid metal. How does she bend? How do you put that on? There are no hinges. There are no latches. There is no attachment points.
I feel like the original one you had looked a little bit more flexible. So, you know, I don't know if that was metal or just a gold trim. You know, it just looked a little bit more natural the way you had it. Somewhere along the lines, the metal got really thick and really pointy. And I don't know why that happened. That Clint is assuming that you were looking at other fantasy art and that it influenced you. I don't know if that was the reason, but originally what you had looked more natural. Okay, just a point of design. We don't want nipple stuff, right? Like, I know you didn't do it for that reason, but again, this is something that was superior in your original. In your original, you didn't have a gold star right over the nipple. You had like some kind of pattern. I don't know what it was, what color it was, but it was like that maybe. And there was like some kind of design here on this piece, right? And it just looked, oops.
We have different keys set up on each computer.
It just looked a little bit more natural, right? To have just, okay, you want to have something in there, have a design, right? So it was little things like that they all add up, right? It's kind of when you're talking about the design. So take this into consideration. Think about what we said. If you want to add more time into this piece, I wouldn't add too much more. I think you can learn a lot more by going back to your characters and focusing time on those.
Just wanted to clarify what I said was when you're looking at too much other art, anyone's art is a derivation from reality. You've deviated from that and you've stylized some stuff and you've left out some of the grounded reality elements. But then if you come along and you're just looking at their art, when you make your thing, what it is now is a derivation of a derivation. And now you're even less grounded from reality and you're doing stylizations of their stylizations of reality. And you start getting like, where we start running into these issues of that's not a real piece of clothing. It couldn't work on a practical level, right? So we've got to kind of back up and go, right, I want this general idea, but what real world thing would be similar to that I could base it on?
I know people are saying, oh, this is common in League of Legends. Yeah, this is common in League of Legends to a degree. They don't make everything unrealistic. Go back and look at it. Most of it is like a skin-tight bodysuit. Okay, that's real. You know, a dress, that's real. There might be these little odd things, but there's not too many. So the amount of it really counts, okay? So this is what we're saying, not to discourage you in any way. This is the feedback on this piece. Now, in terms of your skills, we were talking about this earlier, and we think that, again, we don't know how much time and money you want to invest in this. We're not trying to sell you anything, okay? But even you want to take a class with somebody else, great. But I think a class would help. A class on form rendering, on illustration, on design, any of those three things would really, really help, because we're seeing some form rendering issues with colors getting bleached out in the light. If you turn on my paint over, I just addressed some of that, of knowing how dark things go in the shadows. So there's some work to be done there. There's some work in terms of anatomy, in illustration, and in design. So a class on any of those subjects would help you a lot. If you don't have the time or the resources to take a class and you're going to continue on your own, at the very least, reference everything and not from other artwork. Don't copy splash art. Let's have a more realistic goal. Because when we talked about earlier, the subject that you choose is basically determining who you're competing against. If you choose splash art for your portfolio, you're competing against professional splash artists for those jobs, okay? That's a lot harder to win against them. If you're just doing character designs, if you're doing character, costumes, if you're doing illustrated characters, that's a lot more feasible. So take that, into consideration. Think about what we said, make the best choice for you.
Okay. Some reason it's not pulling that up. Okay. Lucas is up next. And Lucas posted, hello folks, trying to break into the video game industry with character concept art portfolio. I was aiming for illustration splash art, but people said I'd have more luck in character design due to my lack of experience. That was
good advice.
Good input. Yep. Also, apparently, splash artists don't start. No, I don't know anyone who started as a splash artist. Appreciate any feedback. Videos have helped. That's good to hear. Okay.
Cool.
Let's get Lucas is over here. Now, Lucas always sees these 3 images. So
Lucas is here. Hey, Lucas.
Hey, Lucas. Glad you could join. I don't know how long you've been doing this because we only have these, and it looks like you just started posting these recently. So if you have a chance, just type in, let me know how long you've been doing digital painting design stuff. Okay. And we had some notes, but I covered them up. So let me move that out of the way. Okay. Let's pull up your gun or character here. One of the things that I like to see, and that I'm seeing it here, is somebody who has the right mindset to be a concept artist. It is often that we see people submitting things that they say they want to do concept art, but basically it's just a bunch of illustrations. Yeah. And it's clear like they don't really want to develop ideas and they're not interested in exploring the idea. You're the direct opposite. You look like a guy who loves just mulling over an idea and getting into it.
Drawing all the bits of it.
Yeah. Honestly, about a year, 3.5 years of drawing.
Okay.
All right. So that's kind of the range that I
So you're fresh. Feeling. You're still new. Yeah. So that's good. And like Clint said, you have a lot of really good stuff going for you. Like you're working out what the attacks are, what the moves are. Like a lot of people don't even want to be bothered with that. Yes. They just want to do a pretty render. But you actually are interested in the design and exploring the different parts of the design, problem solving. That's really, really, really good.
Yeah. Okay. I thought there was some question or something here I was going to... Okay, so you're trying to break into the video game, and that's what I was trying to remember. If you are actively trying to find work, then we've got to approach this with a bit more, I want to say, professionalism, in that we need to have a strategy of exactly who you're aiming for, what kind of work you're offering, what subject matter you're going to do, because right now it's a bit random. It's too random to be a viable portfolio. For one, we need at least 6 pieces / projects, since it's concept art, of whatever that goal is. So if you want to do characters, then it needs to be like 6 human character design projects with the full process. I would drop away creatures. I would drop away... I don't feel like this is really close enough to the other one. These are both getting a bit varied. And the other thing is making sure you have a realistic expectation of what is actually expected from a character concept artist in the industry today. This is just so you can set the bar correctly for yourself and know what you're aiming for. So one of the schools out there that is, I think, one of the front runners for training artists to do character concepts is New Edge. Mm-hmm. Now
we talk about New Edge a lot because they're right now, I don't know, in our opinion, they're like #1.
Yeah.
I know Art Center is also very good, always has been, but they're just not as visible right now.
Yep. So they have it's like a 16-month, 2-year
I think it's 2
program.
years.
Yeah. And I don't know that much about what their specific training is. All I know is that they get good results. So I just looked on ArtStation for somebody who was a graduate of New Edge. This is what they're doing. I don't know this person. I just saw their work. So this in a very real way is who you're competing against. This is what they're doing. All right, this is what the work is. They're doing good full body. Now, we're not saying that everyone has to do full renders. Not even everyone coming out of New Edge does full renders like this. But
if you're going to render,
this
is the render.
Beautiful turnaround of the face, great textures, details, very iconic look to the character. Turnarounds in flats, that's good. Even without the costume on, got variations there. Beautiful page, all kinds of crazy stuff going on with this. Variations, costumes, right? This is who you're going against. So we've got to aim for a quality that matches this, although the subject obviously can differ. All right. So that is the first thing. And then it's, okay, well, what are they doing that we're not doing? Or what are we doing that we shouldn't be doing that they're doing, right? And we've got to determine what the differences are. Right now, we need certain things. What are you looking at?
Okay, I just want to say, first of all, you're doing something cool that person's not doing, which is you're exploring a lot of the other moves and mechanics. And this is cool. You don't need to not do this. This is like a really cool thing. We're just pointing out, okay, what is he doing that is different from your portfolio that is drawing more eyes to him, right? And the first thing, there's two things. There's really only two things that he's doing. Is the technical skills of the rendering, okay, render and anatomy, the technical knowledge, the fundamental stuff. And number two is the subject matter. It's really those two things. If you can address those two things in your work, then you can make yourself more competitive, right? So when we're talking about hard skills and context, so the actual drawing, painting skills, and then the context, what subject are you selecting and who does it apply to? Who does it appeal to, right?
So for this, at this point, you don't have the rendering skills. And what by rendering is you have your lines and now you're trying to paint it to completion, right? Paint it to the full render. You don't have the rendering skills to compete with a lot of the other people who do beautiful character renders for their concepts. In this case, I would consider just backing it up to nice lines and flat tones.
Yeah, go down there. You kind of had that already. This is stronger than your render. This right here. And you put probably not as many hours into this as into your render, but this is stronger because your render skills are not quite realistic enough to pull it off. But these skills are nice. Your lines are clean. Your colors are clean. You're not sloppy with your line work.
The other thing is these pistols are quite good. There are some good shapes. There's some good render here. The kind of iconography, the motifs and tattoos and stuff. Now, there are character artists who are juniors that get hired. This is mainly what they do for maybe the first year or so that they're on a big project. So if you want to actually position yourself to be hireable more quickly, then you might even double down on some of the stuff. If you've got a background in doing design work, tattoos or graphic design or that sort of stuff, or you have an affinity to it, then you might even play that up and like, I'm really good at designing labels and tattoos and designs and
banners
graphics and make sure that you're showing like that is a strength of what I do. I don't see that in a lot of the other people. They do really good, character renders and stuff, but perhaps they don't have the same sort of interest in doing those graphics. So let me look up here. Do make sure that you're just aiming right now for a lot of volume. You've got to just be doing a lot of work, a lot of characters, a lot of concepts, and ultimately we want 6 really strong pieces
that can compete against these other people.
And I would suggest write down, like, what do you need training in? Like, if I was going to build, say, hey, I want to really build a concept art portfolio, one of the first things I'm going to put down is where am I going to get 3D training? Because that is so important, like, if you're going to do any kind of environment stuff. Okay, what do I specifically need to learn in 3D? Where am I going to learn those things? Approximately how long will it take to learn it? It's like it's getting a game plan, a strategy together for this.
So you have to decide. So Lucas is saying he has a background in coding. He's basically throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Okay, so I don't know if like you mean that you really want to do this professionally, or you're just kind of trying it out, see if it just happens. But I'm going to tell everybody here, a career in concept art or illustration doesn't happen easily. It doesn't just happen. Like, it's a lot of determination, planning, and hard work to really achieve it. It's just too
competitive to take casually.
Yeah. So the best thing that you can do is, if you are really passionate about doing character concepts, there has to be some time spent on just practicing drawing people, painting people, just real people, not imaginary people. And push yourself to the quality level. Look at your competition. Don't hide from them, because they're out there snatching up the jobs. So yeah, if you're trying to go pro, this is really important. I think a class in character design wouldn't hurt. Could be with me, could be with Charles Lynn, could be with, I don't know, somebody else. Doesn't matter who it is, Sunshine Kim, one of the others. But I think that would help you a lot. And basically going from there. Right now, you also only have 3 things on your portfolio. Very hard to get work.
It's not really enough to even judge from at this point. You are trying to go pro. Okay, yeah, then what we have to do is we have to go into it and treat it like a job. Treat it like I'm trying to become a doctor. This is what I need to learn. Where am I going to learn it? How long is it going to take? I want to be a specialist in this particular field. Like, we need a game plan. Because I guarantee you there are a load of other people out there who are very committed, very focused, and training every day to compete against the exact same thing you're trying to do.
Yeah. So one last thing is, again, like we said with the other people, doing a brief.
Yes.
Don't make up your own characters all the time. Like, do some from a brief. And if you don't have briefs available to you, do what they do at New Edge or Sin Studio. They just take old stories like Treasure Island or Count of Monte Cristo, or somebody at New Edge did 3 Musketeers recently, and just redo those characters. It's like, okay, they're going to make a movie. They're going to make a game out of that story. What would you design for those characters?
Okay, take 3 Musketeers. How many times has a 3 Musketeer movie been made? There's like 52 versions of the 3 Musketeers. But every time some artist is asked, okay, we need new designs for the Musketeers. And they have to come up with a new way to do those characters. It doesn't have to be a completely original character. It just... and those are particularly good subjects because they are grounded. And it is something that people are asked to do.
At the big schools, they even they put a twist on it. So they'll say, oh, okay, I'll do the 3 Musketeers, but I'll do it set in feudal Japan. So that the 3 Musketeers will be 3 warriors that serve, the reigning warlord is in Japan, one of the warlords. So it'll be 3 guys or 4 guys, I guess, with D'Artagnan. But anyway, it would be kind of represented that way. Or you could even change the time, maybe it's not in the 1700s, maybe it's in Victorian times, in the late 1800s or early 1900s. So you could change the time and give it a twist. How would I design this? That's what a character designer does.
Yep. Okay, Lucas, we threw a lot at you. Take it to heart. Whatever's useful, take it. Whatever you don't, just keep drawing. That's the main thing. Okay.
Okay, we have one person left for today. So if anyone's watching and saying, "Oh, my portfolio didn't get reviewed," we're gonna do this again next Thursday. So just come back at the same time. We're gonna do 6 more portfolios. If you want to submit a painting or your portfolio for review, just go to the Swatches Discord, swatchesdiscord.com, and post it in there in the video critique submission channel. Okay, so this is the last one for today.
Okay, this one was posted by Elusive GH. I don't know the real name behind that. So you've been working on this character design and want feedback for the presentation for portfolio. You've been working on it, updated it. This is the first piece that you made basically for your portfolio, it looks like. You love cyberpunk and futuristic sci-fi. I'd like to go in that direction. So this character is an ex-military veteran working for a corporation. He's a security supervisor, special tasks field operative, veteran. He's tough.
He's
dangerous.
Here. Hi, Enrique.
Oh, Enrique. All right, cool. I got some inspiration from Armitage. I gotta say, I'm not familiar with this one or that property. Corbin Dallas, of course, I know that. Fifth Element, John McClane, know that. Die Hard. I'd like to know how well the design communicates the character and if he sells the story through his design. This is 100% the right question to ask.
Yeah, that's
All
right on the money.
You're on the right track. Now, I think the answer is maybe not as effective as you'd like it to be, but it's the right question to ask, which is the right place to start. How could I organize it into a portfolio? I'm not very good with prop designs, but I try making a revolver. Yeah, having the major props of a character is a good idea to include on their design sheets. I would agree. Thinking in advance. Okay, so we've got various versions of the character. Like this is, I guess, the main. Okay. So, we got a breakdown of like that's the character. I guess this is a variation. I don't know which one is like the
this
official
one looks
version.
A lot older.
Yeah.
He's got the white hair. Is it the same guy? Can't tell if it's meant to be the same guy. Maybe it is.
Got some color variations. I assume that the dark-haired one is the one you chose because it looks like basically an expanded version of this. And then we've got like uniformed version and some facial hair stuff versions. So the render itself is pretty clean.
Yeah, really, really clean. Nice painting technique.
Yep. The technique's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle back to the main thing here is design. Okay? This is what's really important for anyone who is wanting to do character designs. It's not enough to be able to render the character. We're not talking about just because you can draw and paint a character doesn't make it a character design. What we have to do is communicate the character through the design.
That's the question that you asked, right? So let's look at that and answer the question and see why we answered it the way we did, right?
So if I didn't know anything about this character, I never read your description, I would not know that he is ex-military, special ops, veteran. My guess would be that this guy is a bouncer. He's like a nightclub security dude.
He looks like a guy you would see at the club, right?
Yeah.
He's got the shiny satin shirt, kind of the pants, the dress pants. He's really big.
But yeah, he's built like an ox.
But he's like really tidy. Like his beard and his hair is perfect. And it's very informal, right? He's got the shirt open. It's not very professional. So it's that's the vibe it's giving us right now is nightclub guy.
Yeah.
You said ex-military, cyberpunk, like John McClane inspired. We're not getting those cues visually, right? So what could we do to address that?
Okay, I will say I read that something is going on with his arm, but at this point it's not clear. I don't know if it's like synthetic or diseased, or I don't understand what the blue thing is that's webbing around it. And I'm also not sure from your description what it is. So
I think if it's a prosthetic or mechanical arm, there should be kind of more parts that look like mechanical.
Yeah.
Or that have a hinge on the elbow, maybe.
So we talk about this, about design. Okay, let's just, for the sake of everybody, let's just talk about design for a moment. We go into it more in the character design class and fantasy. We added that in. But essentially it's like this. Every character note or characteristic that you want known about the character, we have to find a visual element that conveys that. So we say he's a veteran. Okay. We have to show, don't tell. Right? It works for writing, it works for illustration. Show, don't tell. Don't tell me he's a veteran, show me he's a veteran. How do you do that? What visual thing, and I'll ask you, what visual thing could you do or add to this character to make me immediately know he's a veteran?
The shaved haircut, a military haircut.
Military haircut. What else could we do?
Dog tags.
Dog tags. What else could we do?
Military tattoo. Maybe saying what platoon or squadron he was in.
Yeah.
Military guys get those tattoos.
Yeah.
They're not random tattoos. They're specific military tattoos.
Yeah. So when you come up with a character point, and there's a limit of how much you can convey about somebody's backstory.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get everything
Unless
in
you
there.
put them in a uniform, right, or something.
Yes.
But if you don't want to do that, then you have to put some of these more little things in there so that the person gets the message.
Yeah. So right now, I feel like it's not... The concept isn't complete as is. Because it's not telling us enough about the concept. So I wouldn't say that this is finished. I would consider it a V1, a version 1. I would consider getting this as the kernel of the idea and making a new version of the character where we learn how to really develop it. And we want to go through every aspect of the character and say, okay, well, if you want a John McClane, what was the other inspiration? Corbin Dallas feel to it. We might actually want to scale him down. Like he's really big right now.
It's basically like a bodybuilder.
Those guys are a little more kind of an everyday
Guy.
sort of character.
Yeah.
That both happen to look a lot like Bruce Willis. And who's not a bodybuilder. Now, if you want to play it up, that's fine. Maybe he's got, enhanced, super soldier muscles or something. Reference more. Lots of reference. And every element has to
especially military.
So it's like we go element by element. Let's do this for a second. Haircut. The right haircut can convey more of a military feel.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the face?
I know you might think, oh, but he's going to look uglier without this pretty hair, right? He won't look as nice. But it's like, that's not our concern. Our concern is communicating the message. If this guy is ex-military, if he's a military veteran, that needs to be our primary concern in communicating that. If
he is ex-military, a lot of ex-military guys wear wraparound sunglasses. Mm-hmm. They get used to wearing them in the military for functional reasons, and they continue wearing them in civilian life. Mm-hmm. Other thing is, if this guy is a working security, he's going to have an earplug where he can communicate wirelessly with people. He can hear headquarters talking to him. So right there on the face, having the right haircut, potentially even a hat. A lot of them wear hats or bands around their hair for sweat and stuff, plus sunglasses, plus the earpiece would immediately tell me more about this character. Then we go to the shirt. What shirt choice would tell me more? Would he have a pocket? Would he have anything in the pocket?
This shirt is very, very tight.
Yeah.
It's just that style of shirt. It just looks like nightclub or hairdresser. It's not the style of shirt that one of these guys would wear.
So go look at references. Look at military guys. Look at veterans. Look at real world mercenaries. Mm-hmm. What kind of shirts they wear? usually not dress shirts. A lot of times it's like a long sleeve t-shirt or a t-shirt or even a tank top, right?
Yeah, like John McClane wears
Yeah,
the tank
exactly.
top.
Pants, probably not dress pants. Probably going to be something hardier than that.
Something with utility pockets. They like that.
Utility pockets. Potentially he's going to have a small sidearm, a knife.
I mean, you also said cyberpunk, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we have some cool cyberpunk boots? Pants tucked into the boots, some zippers.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like, not cyberpunk, this is just normal life, right? You've got normal pants, normal shoes. So I'm not saying that this is bad, but if you're trying to do cyberpunk, then you might want to look into those aspects as well.
Same thing here. This is what we consider first iteration of body armor. This is the kind of simplest version of body armor. But now just go out to Pinterest, put in body armor. See the shapes you get.
I'm not saying this is not realistic. I'm sure there's armor that looks like that, but could we do more? Like, there's not much to look at, right?
Okay. So I pulled up some references just to give you an idea of like what we would be looking at, what we'd be taking away from this. So first up is, if you're mentioning certain characters as your inspiration, go look at those characters. Here we have John McClane. I think this is from the third one with
Maybe.
Samuel Jackson. Could be wrong.
But look at the visual cues that are there, right? He's a cop. How do we know he's a cop? We got the badge right there. He's rough and tough. He's a tough guy. He fights a lot. He's dirty. He's damaged. He just survived a lot of stuff, and he's still alive, right? He's got the white shirt on, the tank top. You know, it's a more of a typical tough guy thing to wear. Shirt's dirty. He's not perfectly crisp and clean.
Yeah. Even if he wasn't dirty, even if it didn't look like he just swam through the sewers here, he's wearing more everyman clothes. He's not really that worried about fashion. Where the other guy seems he's trying to have this perfectly, suited shirt that's like muscle showing with nice pants, right? That's not really what we're getting here. Other version, later, Die Hard. Again, long sleeve t-shirt, basically.
What are they telling us here? Like, oh, there's the badge. There's the gun in the holster. We got some damage on him. The loose, like, manly clothes.
Yep.
All those things are the visual communicators, right?
Now we look at some real world veteran. Somebody like this guy. Again, big sunglasses, hat, right. It's a practical thing. Long sleeve t-shirt, basically. And fatigues, really common. A lot of these guys still wear fatigues. Yeah. Could you have the guy wearing like graphite gray fatigues? Sure. It just has a light amount of pattern to them.
That would be cool.
So that at a read you get like military-esque, but not active military.
Maybe cooler.
Yeah. Okay, so we see that. Same sort of this guy. I just pulled these off Pinterest.
Look at that messy beard. Doesn't care. He's wearing the glasses. He's got, gear on.
No, understand that I don't think you were going for active full gear version of the character. No. But it's a few things that you can put in, like maybe just a more military style belt with a pocket or two.
Or a military watch.
That's a big one. Almost all of these guys wear watches. It's just something that you use. It's a practical thing of doing that occupation where you need to know exactly what time it is so you can sync up with different things. And it's not going to be from your cell phone. It's going to be on your wrist, right? You can't, you don't want to pull out a device to see what time it is. So it's going to be that. And then look at other people's artwork. Is there somebody that's done something similar? This basically tells me what you described to me.
But look at the boots, look at the pants, the belts, right? The attitude of the guy, the shaved head, right? It's all there. And it's not saying you have to copy this. There's like, there's many different ways that you can do this, right? He did look at this cool design. He did this design of jacket. You don't have to do the same jacket as him or the same top or the same pants, but this is kind of what we're talking about.
Yep.
that communicates really clearly. I could know looking at this guy.
Yeah. So you want to learn from what other people are doing without necessarily trying to copy them. Again, I don't need this guy to look like the Hulk in order for him to feel powerful or threatening. Right? He feels trained. He feels quick. He feels sharp. And I don't need him to be super bulky. Now that's just kind of a side point, but consider that. I guess got like little tattoo here, cigarette. Again, I think the gloves was a reasonable idea. What kind of boots? He's probably used to wearing more military style boots. Like this. Again, tank top underneath maybe. Got some tattoos, shaved sides of the head, big glasses, more combat ready pants.
Yeah, more accessories.
Yeah.
So you said you weren't good with props. I get it. I'm not terrific with props. That doesn't mean you have to make a couple of guns, but even just the accessories like the pouches, the straps, the holsters, those things, like that's not as difficult as hard surface, and it helps a lot to include them.
Yep. And just looking at some inspirations of this stuff, seeing how they fit together, the pieces, the panels. And then sure, if you want more of a cyberpunky feel, add in some sort of glowing piece or some sort of
accent color.
Smart armor idea to it that somehow. Okay. That said, I think that the strongest or the best option is to do a version 2 of the character. Go make sure you got references of all this stuff. Do more time brainstorming. Figure out how you're visually going to communicate this stuff.
And that goes for everyone. If you have a character and you say, okay, that character needs to be, ex-military, write down ex-military. He needs to be tough, you write down tough. Ready to fight, whatever. Then when you design it, say, okay, how am I communicating each of these things clearly, obviously? What can I do? What can I put on my character to make sure that that is coming across, that the viewer knows these things? Yeah. If they can't tell...
There has to be a visual equivalent for every one of those.
There has to be something on the character, usually more than one thing, to tell those characteristics, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a rule of thumb that we go by, which is if you can't see it, it's not true. So if you say he's ex-military, but I can't see that on the character, to a viewer, it's just not true. And the same way in a movie, if it's not on the screen in the movie, it doesn't happen. It's even a cliche at this point. Unless you actually see the character's dead body, they're not really dead, right? It's a joke now.
It's like in Marvel, they'll be back.
Even if they're dead, they're still not dead.
They're not dead. They're never dead. Okay, so there's a couple of questions I wanted to.
Okay, yeah, we did see some questions. I'll back it up, and we'll take a look at some of these questions that have been piling up.
Dan is here. Dan, I think he's still here. Dan asked, what if somebody wants to do splash art because it's the most fun? Should they do something like 3 non-splash pieces for a portfolio and then 1 splash for fun? Something like that?
What if somebody wants to do...
Yeah, that's what I just read.
I would certainly have less complex subjects in my portfolio. If you are already... this would be... If I was trying to do splash art...
It depends. Like, are you trying to get work with it? Or are you just having fun? Like, if you're just having fun, then that's fine. Do whatever you...
Yeah, if you're having fun with it, just do it.
In there. But if you're actually trying to find work, is spending 50 hours on a splash piece that's not competitive, is that the best use of your time?
Yeah. Because we only have so much time. And if you put a piece out there, you put 2 splash, focus pieces out there, and you don't get any bites, you don't get any projects off of it, I wouldn't start trying to pile more on there. If you're not getting any response to it, then I would just start doing more other stuff that is getting response. Yeah. May I ask if non-students can ask for portfolio reviews?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these people are not students of us from the school.
Not all of them are our students. Some are, some
Some
are
are.
not. But just go to the Discord, swatchesdiscord.com, okay? And then join the Discord. In the section for your art, there's a channel called, oh, now I forgot what it's called.
The video, artwork video critique or something.
Yeah, now I forgot exactly what it's called.
Video critique submission.
There. So just put it in there, make a post a link to your portfolio or the art piece that you want reviewed, and we'll get to it eventually. Like, we're going through them in order.
Yep. When I do this, must I make close-up of these props, or can I stick to posing character?
Well, I mean, just be aware that if you're doing this as a job, this was Enrique asked this question.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, if you're doing this as a job, you might get asked to draw clarifications, close-ups. So I don't think it's something you should avoid if you want to do this professionally, because they're probably going to ask you to do that.
Yeah, a lot of times, if they have a major prop with them, you probably need to design that. This guy, you've got to do that axe. Because the idea is somebody's probably going to 3D model this.
They need to see it.
And you are the one who designs it. All they do is mock it up. All right. They are not there to design it. They are there to just make a 3D model of whatever you make. So if you leave it undetermined,
someone's going to have to design
somebody
it.
will have to come, and it's not going to be a 3D modeler. They're going to literally have to have another artist come in to design that. So that makes you less effective or desirable to the company, because that means now they have to have two artists to do what normally one artist would do. Okay. I wanted to ask about the rendering in specific, which does take me a long time to do. It takes everyone a long time to do. Do I need to render? What can I do to take it more realistic level? You got a couple of options there.
For now, you don't need to render.
Yeah.
On those pieces, but if you're trying to level up your rendering, there's a few things. Yeah, go ahead.
So photo bashing. This is photo bash. This is. I assume it's photo bash. It looks like it to me.
Some of it.
Yeah. This is a mix. This is another one from New Edge. This is very appropriate for certain companies. Was it Ubisoft?
They like it a lot.
Yeah. Ubisoft almost only does realistic photo bashing for like Assassin's Creed. Other properties are much more open to lines and flats, like we saw Mattias doing for Star Wars, Avenger movies, and that's fine for them. So it will determine a little bit client to client of what they're looking for. But unless either it's nice lines with kind of flat tones, it is fully hand painted, which just takes a long time, or it is photo bashed
and painted
more like this. It's probably easier or faster to learn how to do that to a higher level of realism than it is to learn how to do it freehand painting. So,
yeah, honestly, a class would be the best thing. Or if you can, I don't know if on YouTube there's any demos of people photo bashing a whole character and painting. You might find a video of possibly Jude Smith doing something like that. I don't know if it's still up. So take a look at that, see if you can find it. But yeah, just painting from life and practicing realistic rendering, painting from reference is the best way to get better at fixing your values. Right?
Yeah. I'm just going to make that bigger since we're basically just talking now.
Okay.
I feel like there was some other questions up here that I just missed.
I don't know.
I'm just scanning down through the previous notes here. Do you think a character designer should render in more than one style or make characters from more than one type of game? I don't suggest having multiple styles. Yeah, not for a designer. That's fine. One type of game. If you're talking about genres, it's okay to do multiple genres. If you want to do like some contemporary characters, you want to do some fantasy characters, you want to do some historical characters, yeah, that's cool. We don't suggest or we discourage artists who are getting into designing to do science fiction because there is no historical basis, right? You're literally having to design everything for something that doesn't yet exist. And that is a high task.
It's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder to do. And juniors don't yet have the experience to draw on to do that effectively. So you almost never see juniors getting hired to do science fiction concepts. The only kind of exception is to that is maybe if they're doing like props. They get hired to do, the sci-fi crate and doorway and some of that stuff. But less so with characters. Okay.
Any other questions? I think there's one down here from Enrique. If I rework the character, I will rework the character based on your feedback, which I'm so glad. When going to portfolio, previous iterations should be put together there or just take them off? I think if you improve them and if you make them communicate better, you don't need to keep the ones that are not communicating.
Yep.
Just take those off.
Yep. All right. Well, that's everybody. We're pushing 2 hours here.
Yeah, sorry for all the time. Next week we'll do the next 6. So I think we're starting with Enoch and then the next 6 people. And so, if you want to see more of this, if you posted and it didn't get reviewed yet, just tune in next week.
Yep. If anybody wants to sharpen their skills over this summer and you want feedback from us every week, there is about
2 weeks.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks left to sign up for any of the live summer feedback courses over on Swatches Academy. Otherwise, you've got to wait several months. So if you want that, check that out. Otherwise, the other courses, most of them are available in self-study if you want to do that on your own schedule.
And we have new stuff coming out in the fall. So if there's nothing there that's interesting to you, just check back at the end of summer and we'll have some new stuff.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And we will catch you next time. Until then, keep drawing.